comics, movies and TV shows, video games, collectibles and cosplay. With these topics combined, we are My Big Fat Pull List.
By entertaining and educating our audience, we hope to give you the tools needed to save your time and especially your money.
We're ready to geek out with you.
Hey, listeners, welcome back to another great episode of My Big Fat Pull List. And today, this one is going to be brought to you by none other than myself, Dragonus Prime. And I am sitting here with two amazing listers in the names of...
I don't know what metalmen are, Smurfy.
And I am the ever unclever and can't come up with a cool moniker, Dr. Impact.
Wow. You guys had metal. You could do Lustream. You could have done Shiny. You could have done Hard.
Man, yeah. I was.
Those are all fantastic. I didn't think of any of those. Like, adjectives.
I think Smurfy.
I could have used an adjective.
I think Smurfy and I are just so excited for this episode because it's Dragonus Prime's first full hosting episode that we were just too taken aback.
This is my very first episode to be the runner of. So if you guys don't ever see me running another episode later on, you'll know why.
This one went smoothly. That's why. That's right. It was too good.
That's right.
This episode was too good. We couldn't have him back.
It got a gold.
See? I like it.
So, with that said, gentlemen, when a giant monster attacks the city or when a giant robot decides to rampage about, who do you think you need to call in the DC universe?
He-Man. I'll see myself out. I'll see you guys later. Well, that's a really good question because say the Justice League isn't available and the Green Lantern Corps are too busy out in space. Who's left?
Well, I mean, you could call the Titans, you could call the Suicide Squad, you could call Doom Patrol, but no, I think
available.
I think what we're getting to, though, is when you can't get a hold of any of those other guys, you go for those slapsticky, sarcastic robots known as the Metal Men.
So they are. So, I mean, okay, so, and I'll be honest, I don't know a whole lot about Metal Men. They are robots, officially.
They are.
Okay, because I do know that they all have kind of, they have powers, too, right?
Well, yeah, and I'm going to go into all that a little bit more and describe things a bit more. Yeah, you're getting really excited, and I appreciate that.
I'm here to learn, absorb.
So, we're going to talk about Metalmen this episode. And with Metalmen being robots and androids, why don't you listeners go to your Android device, or iPhone if you have that as well, and check out all of our social media pages. We're on Facebook, Instagram, we're on Twitter, TikTok, and we are on YouTube. We also now have a Patreon where you can help us fund so we can make the real Metalmen. And if Pistol were here, he would tell you to go to www.patreon.com/mybigfatpulllist.
Podcast.
Did I do that? Podcast.
My Big Fat Pull List podcast, yeah. Well, he would tell you to do that. That's true. He'd probably say it a lot saltier than you do, but yes, yeah.
Well, I can't help it. I'm grinning, especially when I talk about the Metal Men. Now, I have always loved the Metal Men ever since I was a wee ankle biter, and my first encounter with them was when myself and Dr. Impact took a trip to Chicago with our parents. We went to go visit a family friend that we hadn't seen in a while.
I remember that trip. I think that was the trip when I discovered, I think it was Blue Beetle and Mr. Miracle. I think was when I think that was the trip that I got those books.
You know what? I don't honestly remember because I didn't care about what you discovered, because what I found that trip was the Metal Men.
That's all that matters. Metal Men. Stay on topic.
Me and Dad were going through the quarter boxes, as kids do, and there sitting in there was issue 1 of volume 2 of Metal Men.
Now, was that the Dan Jurgens?
That's the Dan Jurgens miniseries, 4-issue mini. And it was one of those nice cardstock covers with the 90s foil cover, 90s shimmering foil covers.
Oh, yeah. Each one of the Metal Men was like a different shiny foil.
Yeah, it was.
That would be cool.
Caught my little 10-year-old, 8-year-old eye instantaneously. So, Needless to say, I bought that and I read that book, I think 4 or 5 times in the hotel room that night. I just devoured it. And ever since that day, I have been collecting Metalman comics almost as badly as I collect action figures.
Do you still have that copy, or
I
have
do.
you had to buy another copy?
I do still have that copy.
My copy of Blue Beetle #1 that we got at that same time actually fell behind the headboard of the bed in the hotel room that we were staying in, and I
did it really
buy it. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh wow.
It was traumatizing. Are you kidding me?
Why didn't you reach under the bed and get it? Why didn't you?
I couldn't. It was one of those ones where it was like all closed off. And you couldn't.
That's
the headboard attached to the wall.
Yeah.
What else would be underneath there? Gross.
Somewhere in Chicago, in between the wall and the headboard of the hotel bed, is a Blue Beetle #1. But so you didn't lose yours. I lost mine.
No, I didn't even know that because again, I didn't care. I had a comic book of Metalman.
Okay, fair enough.
If you don't mind me asking, do you remember like what was so you said this was issue 1 of volume 2 that you have, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so was it like a retelling of the heroes themselves or of the Metalmen, or was it like a continuation?
I'm going to go into that a bit more because that's one of the points we're going to talk about, but it's kind of a continuation. It's a pseudo-origin story after Crisis.
Oh, okay. Good time frame. Okay.
But that's my first experience of the Metalman. What was your guys' first experience of the Metalman?
Well, for me, it had to have been that. I don't really recall because, I was obsessed with Blue Beetle and Mr. Miracle, so I don't really recall you getting that, but it must have been that. But I would say it was probably pretty early in the 80s, mid 80s, somewhere around there, where I first discovered them as well. So yeah, probably around the same time.
For me, late bloomer, man, had to be like later 2000s during either Countdown or 52 when they brought those guys in.
Yep.
That story.
52.
Yeah. Had no idea who the guys were. Like I said, like I was just kind of getting into DC and was kind of like stories were going good. And who are these 5 metallic people?
Oh, so you hadn't even heard of them prior to
No, I did not know they were a thing, and all of a sudden they were on the page, and I was are these guys new? They must have just built this yesterday. Wrong-o! Like, because, again, man, when you, like, for our listeners out there, don't be afraid when you jump into comics, man. You're going to have that experience. You're going to be like, who is this guy? This guy must be brand new, and then you kind of do some more research and go, they've been around for a while.
Why we started this show. So that
Bingo,
if you do jump in and you have questions and you pick up a random book, let's say a random DC book, and the Metalmen show up, you can come to this podcast and learn about them.
Bingo.
That's right. I'm going to do the work for you and tell you all about them.
That's right.
That's why we're here.
Having said that, Prime, let's dig in. I mean, I know a little bit about them, obviously, having grown up with you. But let's dig in and let's start learning about the Metalmen.
So the Metalmen, as Smurfy just found out this episode, are all robots. They are all robot inventions by Dr. William Magnus.
Who's your... Sorry, I was like, Wiley?
Oh, no. Which is a funny...
Wiley?
Yeah, well, he does robots too. Saying.
Yeah, no. He's trying to build robots to catch a Roadrunner. This one's trying to build robots to fight supervillains.
Gotcha. Okay. And that was the whole intent. These weren't an accident. Like, he's like, I'm going to build robots.
No, he built them on purpose.
Okay.
So, essentially, yes. Their first appearance was in Showcase number 37. And what happens in that issue is a giant manta ray gets broken free from frozen ice. I can't remember if it's been so long since I've read. I can't remember if it's an alien or a prehistoric monster or something. But it's broken free from ice, and it starts rampaging around. And, of course, instead of calling the Justice League, instead of calling the Titans, the government turns to Dr. Will Magnus to try to save everyone from this giant manta ray that also shoots laser beams and melts buildings.
Of course it does. Why wouldn't it?
Right. And when he visits Dr. Will Magnus, he sees Dr. Magnus dancing with a robot woman. He's like, oh, that's a wonderful invention, Dr. Magnus. I wish you could make great robots that have great personalities. And the robot woman snaps at him and gets all sassy with him. And the robot woman is actually Platinum.
Okay.
Oh, so Platinum, the Metalman, metal woman, I guess in this case,
metal
person for the 21st century, Platinum is technically the first then.
Platinum is the first Metalman.
Okay.
She was built as an experiment by Dr. Will Magnus. And when the guy can see, the general guy can see what she can do, where she starts stretching her body around, almost kind of like Plastic Man. She can stretch, she can remorph her body, but a lot of what she does is very similar to the metal of platinum. So she does a lot of thin, wiry stuff with her transformations. And so when the guy sees how amazing he is, he asks Magnus, hey, build more robots so we can fight this monster. And they don't exactly say how much time passes, but I can't imagine he builds them overnight.
Yeah, but I also don't think it was like eight years later. Like this monster's still roaming around. Like,
but even if it's a week.
Yeah, but no, I mean that's my point. Like even if it's a week, that's a whole that's 7 days. This thing's just roaming around destroying stuff. Right. The Green Lantern Corps is like, nah, Metal Man's got it. We'll see you guys later.
Well,
don't worry about it.
It is the 60s.
Oh, I know. I'm just saying, like.
The way the comic describes it, it makes it sound like he builds the robots overnight. And it's like, there's no way he can build 5 more robots overnight.
Time out. Well, if he had a big enough creepy crawler machine, take the creepy crawler machine, put them in the mold, cook them, wait for it to ding, slide them out.
Creepy crawler. Wow.
That's what I'm picturing.
Which is kind of funny because they are all kind of ductile and can be all rubbery like a creepy crawler.
Yeah,
see?
True.
Done. Writes itself.
So he ends up making the rest of the Metal Men. He makes the field leader, which is Gold. And Gold is very much, you're at this time period in the 60s, he's very much your, 60s leaders of a superhero team.
Captain America kind of Cyclops.
Captain America, Cyclops. Yeah, very much that type of leader. Then you have Iron, and Iron's your very typical 60s strong guy.
Okay.
And he's, the muscle. Oh, I'm built to be the muscle. And when he builds them to Gold, they all say, like, I'm Gold. I'm the shiniest of metals, and I'm the most precious, so I'm going to be the leader and stuff like that. And Iron's like, I'm Iron. I'm the strongest of the metal men.
Yeah, they introduce themselves in that, like, old school. Yeah.
So, real quick. Are they actually made out of the material that they're named after?
They are. So
gold is made out of pure gold.
Gold is made out of pure gold. Platinum is made out of pure platinum.
Interesting, because that could be unsafe and okay. Like solid gold is not very good to fight with. Like,
no, it's a very soft metal.
Anyone else seeing problems here? Okay, great. Continue on.
Then there's lead.
Lead poisoning,
That's what I was like. We have lead.
Lead, who's also a very soft metal.
Right, but by Doctor. Yeah. I wonder what he died of.
And lead is very much your big dumb guy of the team.
Okay.
There's Mercury, who will tell you in almost every single issue that he is the only metal that is liquid at room temperature.
And also poisonous, but yes.
And also poisonous. And Mercury has a personality very similar to that of Guy Gardner.
Okay. Oh, interesting. Like the tough guy, macho. Okay. Huh.
Had to squeeze that in there, didn't you?
I had to squeeze in Guy Gardner.
For anyone... Yeah, anybody that's listening, if you have been watching the series we have on YouTube, Prime Impact, you will know that Dragonus Prime has gotten this bizarre bug up his butt to bother me with the mention of Guy Gardner in as many episodes as he possibly can.
That's pretty awesome.
Yes, had to get it in there, didn't you?
I did. And it fits so well because Mercury is the Guy Gardner.
It does, yeah.
And then lastly, the last Metal Man, the meek and mild one of the team, the timid one, Tin. And Tin is, to best describe Tin, he's essentially Rick Moranis from Ghostbusters.
Oh, wow.
He's very timid.
Almost the comic relief.
Yes, and he always stutters all the time. He never talks straight.
Built a stutter into a
stuttering robot. Okay. Well,
I mean, it's the 60s, I know.
So those are the 6 Metal Men. Now, he didn't build any of these Metal Men with the intentions of them having the personalities that they have.
Gotcha.
The Metal Men have inside them this device that he created called, I always read it as responsometer.
Oh, yeah, that's what I've always read it as, too, the responsometer, yeah.
But when they actually, spoiler alert for later, they actually show up in an episode of Batman Brave and the Bold. And they refer to it as a responsometer in there.
Oh, that's interesting. I wonder why they changed that. Like, what a weird thing to change. So
it's not a changing. It's the exact same spelling. I've just been reading it as responsoreader.
You know what, though, man? The problem about the comics back in the day when we were first reading them, there's no way to be like, here's how you pronounce this word.
Yeah.
Like, I think I pronounced Hank, what is it, Pym? I always called him Pime. Like kind of like, I don't know why. And then everyone's like, it's Pym. And I was like, I never thought about it, enunciating it that way. My bad. So, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, they've got inside them a responsometer, which I'm going to try to refer to that way because if that was an official episode of DC Cartoon, that must be the official pronunciation.
we'd hope, and let's say retcon it, but yeah. So.
Yeah, and you may hear me slip up quite a lot, listeners, but I'm going to do my best to say responsometers. But Will Magnus builds the responsometers and puts them inside the metals, and that brings the metalmen to life. And for some reason, there's some sort of weird combination where the responsometers react to the actual metal, and the metal's personality comes out, because apparently metals have personality. And so he builds the metalmen. The metalmen fight the giant manta ray thing, and they defeat it, but they all die in the process.
God, wow, what? Man.
In the very first issue?
Very first issue, they defeat it, and they all die, sacrificing themselves in the process to bring down this giant dome.
They die in the... And this is what? This is
1963, I believe.
So we're talking...
62.
So we're talking maybe, what, like a year after the introduction of Barry Allen, we introduced this new crew of interesting, but yet not really realistic or workable characters that we can build a whole new thing off of and then kill them immediately?
Well, it was also during that era where comics were, I think for the most part, being made month to month. Mm-hmm. And at the very end of it, they have this thing, if you fans want to see the Metalmen come back, write us and let us know.
Oh, it was a test. Well, sure, because it was showcased. Right.
Yeah. So, needless to say, they must have got enough people to write back in because they were in the very next issue. And in this issue, again, there's some giant robot made by, I think, like a German scientist or a communist scientist attacking a celebration to the Metalmen. And Magnus has to...
parade?
Yeah, he attacks the parade.
What a jerk.
And Magnus has to build...
What a Green Goblin move.
Right?
Magnus has to build new Metalmen to put in the parade because his Metalmen were all destroyed in the last issue. So he makes these new Metalmen, and they're just like beep boop bop me Metalman. Yet they're very, very robotic. And when he sends them to try to fight the giant robot, they fall all over each other. They can't work as a team because they don't have the responsometers inside of them.
Makes sense.
Oh, okay.
I'm trying to think of this villain. Hey man, got this big bad guy to take out the Metalmen. He shows up. We're gonna destroy their parade. Where are they? Well, since they're dead, they're not around. He's like, wait a minute. We attacked the parade of dead guys. Like, you just gotta feel like you lost already. Like, you know, like I'm heartless. It's like, oh, here come the new Metalmen. We'll destroy them. They fell over each other and broke. Oh man, like my life's a sham. Like, I'm just gonna retire.
Well, needless to say, Doc goes by and he actually grabs the responsometers from all the whereabouts of where his Metalmen died in the first issue, puts them in these new bodies. Bada boom, bada bang, and the Metalmen are back, and they defeat the evil robot that's attacking their, as Smurfy put it, their funeral parade.
Yeah, like, or whatever, this is a parade.
It wasn't a funeral parade because the public didn't know the Metalmen died, but...
Well, right. That's what I'm saying. It was like their victory parade without them, though. Like, who's on the floats? No one? Like, hey, here's a float of the guys who won. Nobody there. This is a weird parade.
And then after a while, the Metalmen got their own book, and they were putting their own first ongoing, and it ran for 56 issues, all the way up to like the early 70s.
That's a pretty decent run, man.
Wow!
Like,
right.
You got to think that it's 12 books a year, you know. So 56, right. Yeah, that's a pretty good run.
Right. So they actually had a really good run. They had all sorts of things where they fought a group of villains called the Gas Gang, which was literally just like the Metalmen, only they were gases.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, you can take on helium. No.
That was actually one of them.
See, I knew it. Here comes oxygen. Oh, boy.
That was another one.
Wow. Well, I was going to say, when did they go up against Chemo? Because what I know of with the Metalmen, you know, every superhero and team has their Joker or their Green Goblin or their Lex Luthor. I don't know if this is accurate or not, but I've always viewed the Metalmen as having the big giant monster Chemo.
Yeah, Chemo. I've always pronounced it Chemo,
whatever.
Because chemicals. Chemo was the final showcase. If I remember right, showcase number 39. They went up against Chemo, and that was the first time they faced
green. Wearing like the onesie.
No. He was a giant, about 50, 60 feet tall. Maybe not that tall, but I mean, he's massive, and he's a giant test tube full of chemicals.
Huh. Okay.
And he was their enemy. He would spit chemicals at iron, and it would be certain chemicals that would make iron rust, or he would shoot chemicals at some of the other ones to make them dissolve. And he could like mix different chemicals inside of himself and fire them out. But he was essentially just a mindless monster that rampaged cities that the Metalmen always fought. And like Dr. Impact said, Chemo was very much the Metal Men's Joker, or their Lex Luthor, or Red Skull, or what have you.
Not a bad villain though, man. Like, take the yin to the yang, type thing.
Right.
So, yeah.
And so that's where the Metalmen were in the original pre-Crisis. And then after their series ended, after issue 56, you saw them guest star in other things. Like, they'd show up in, at one point, all 4 of the different Superman titles. They'd show up in Brave and the Bold.
I was going to say, they had a decent run of Brave and the Bold team-ups with Batman, didn't they, for a while?
Batman, I think Firestorm they teamed up with a couple times in Brave and the Bold. They showed up, I think, once or twice in maybe a Legion book. That might have been post-Crisis, but I know they do show up in Legion at some point. And they even had a final reappearance in Showcase number 100.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
But yeah, and that was very much where the Metalmen were pre-Crisis, and they were very, very your typical 60s Farsi team. Doc Magnus is very much think of a leading scientist man from a 1950s movie. The very, very handsome leading scientist with the checkered coat and the pipe and all that.
Okay.
These are typical. Yeah, he's just like with the lab coat and okay. That's like every other Powerpuff Girls dad and
right, exactly, just like the Powerpuff Girls dad.
Right.
The kind of awkward thing in the books to read though is Platinum, who always is referred to as Tina, has this weird romantic obsession with Doc Magnus.
See what a weird fetish, and there's a weird kink in there. Okay,
but it's not necessarily his kink.
No, it's not reciprocated. Yeah,
that's weird.
And he always
that's weird. That's really weird.
And he always jokes like, "Oh, Platinum," or he'll say, "Oh, Tina, I didn't program you this way." Ha 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 ha.
But he's kind of like their dad.
Right. He is,
and so she's okay.
Yeah, see,
I think there's an adult website that caters to that, but I'm not sure that that's what we want to go into here.
No.
Now, there was a 7th unofficial Metalman / member of the team that showed up at issue 13. And this is a character named Nameless. And she was a robot character that was built by 10 because 10 wanted a friend.
Huh.
And she ended up even actually...
Good.
Yeah.
Well, that was more lead. 10 would be more stuttery.
She likes me.
Exactly. To the point where, and I'm not even exaggerating, 10 and Nameless got married.
Oh.
What metal was Nameless, they say?
They never really say. She was just a robot kid, but she also ended up having the same powers as the Metalmen and would stretch and transform her body and do all sorts, a very Plastic Man-y power set, basically. They would also all form their bodies to make cannons together and such.
Okay.
But yeah, after the series, though, she kind of just disappears. You don't really see much from him.
So she was in it regularly after issue 13.
Yeah.
She just kind of never showed up again.
Yeah, I think she kind of shows up here and there, but for the most part, pre-Crisis, she's not really part of the team after that, especially leading into Crisis.
Well, I was just going to say that's a perfect segue into Crisis, into their involvement. But I'm sure, I could sit down and go through it again. I've read Crisis so many damn times, but I don't ever recall anyone other than the basic Metalmen showing up in Crisis.
I actually just recently went through in preparation of these show notes, looking through the major DC events to see where they appear and stuff, and she is not in Crisis. The only ones in Crisis are the 6 Metalmen. And even then, Crisis, out of all the crossovers, Crisis is the one where they have the biggest involvement. They show up in 3 issues.
They have that huge involvement in the later half.
Yes, they show up in 3 issues. They show up in the 2-page spread, which has that in issue 5, and Mercury is pretty heavily featured in that, stretching up and above all the other heroes. And then if you're like me and you want to find them all, you do your Where's Waldo and look through the crowd to see where George Perez put the other ones.
And that's such a great double-page spread, and for anybody that wants to know more detail about that issue and those kinds of things, you can always check out our archives. In our Understanding DC Comics Continuity, we do a whole breakdown of all 12 issues of Crisis.
And then they show up in one panel in issue 9 where 10 has a line basically saying that we're going to back you guys, we're going to fight the bad guys, because that's the issue where the bad guys gather up. And then again, they are featured heavily in issue 10, where it actually starts with Chemo, which I always consider Chemo an unofficial member of the Metalmen just because they fight him so much. But it starts with Chemo destroying a New York City in Earth 4. It's got Platinum fighting 3 mind control villains, and they don't have any effect on her because she's a robot.
Right.
I think one of them's even Despero that she's fighting. Or Despero, or however you want to pronounce it.
Yeah. So what issue is it of Crisis where like the Metalmen all have to come together because
that's issue 10, where they make the big device where Gold stretches himself out.
Yeah, because they kind of they can stretch into shapes and they kind of connect, kind of like the way the Transformers combiners would do. They will connect to each other and they create some sort of device that helps them travel, I forget, somewhere. I don't know if it's the end of time or what, but they're integral in that. So that's issue 10?
That's issue 10 as well.
Okay.
But that's about all they really have, aside from that, which is an integral part, and they are featured heavily in that. That's about all they have in Crisis. And then the post-Crisis origin, after Crisis is done and the heroes win and all that, they are not really given one like all the other heroes are. They have one panel in the history of the DC universe where it talks,
like anybody would, yeah.
Right. It talks about Magnus building Metalmen, and that's about it. They don't get any origin.
Okay, so they don't really get retconned too much.
They don't get retconned until Volume 2.
Which was the one that you got in Chicago.
Which is the one I got in Chicago that I ended up, like, not too long after that, going back and finding the other 3 issues, because it's only a 4-issue miniseries. And in that one, you find out quite an interesting origin about the Metalmen.
Before you dive into that, so we earlier in this episode, we called that the Dan Jurgens series. For anybody out there listening, or any listeners who don't know, Dan Jurgens is a comic book writer and artist who has worked both for Marvel and DC, and probably he's done some indie work. But he did some Thor for a while, and he did some. I think he did some Spider-Man for a while, but I know for a fact he did Thor for a while as a writer. I think
I did not know that.
Yeah, he kind of took over after the Heroes Were Born stuff with Thor. He came over for that, but his big claim to fame, he is most known as being the man who killed Superman.
Yes.
He wrote and drew the entire Death of Superman issue, and was writing and drawing Superman, and kind of like the showrunner spearheader of the entire Superman line in the 90s. So that's for our listeners who don't know. So my question for you, Prime, is this Metalmen book, did this come out before or after or during his time on Superman?
If memory serves, and I can't remember the actual date, but I think it comes out around like 93, which I think is right around the time of Death of Superman.
Yes, it is. It is. In fact, I think it might even be like the same year or the year after. So what gets retconned then in that Jurgens book?
So in this book, you find out that the Metalmen are not robots created by Doc Magnus per se. Magnus had a brother named Mike Magnus. Yeah.
Wow. Awesome. Okay.
And Mike Magnus and Will Magnus worked with 3 other lab assistants, 2 males and a female.
Okay.
There was a janitor at this laboratory who was kind of a meek, timid guy who stuttered a lot.
Oh.
And of the lab assistants, the woman was your standard, I hate to say it this way, but standard 90s written woman character.
Okay.
One of the lab assistants was kind of a tall, redheaded, Guy Gardner-y type personality. And the other one was this kind of a tall, black, strong guy. And they're running this experiment. And the Guy Gardner-y guy gets antsy and he's tired of waiting around, so he orders a pizza. And the pizza shows up, and this big dumb guy enters the lab with a pizza. And something goes wrong with the experiment, and all of them begin to die. And Will Magnus takes their psyches and puts them inside the responsometers.
Okay.
And
so
then
that explains the personalities, like that, obviously.
Right.
Okay. And that's why when he made them before, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. That's when we made the second versions. None of them had personalities because they didn't have the personality devices. I forgot what it's called. Yeah, in them.
The personality device.
That's easier to read than responsometer.
Yeah, responsometer. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. I mean, it makes sense,
Right. And so that's where and naturally the Metalmen have a complete psychic breakdown and all split apart from all this because they realized, oh my God, we're real people trapped in these bodies.
Yeah, we're not humans anymore.
Right.
That's rough.
And then towards the end of the book at around issue 3, because again, it's only a 4-issue mini, the Metalman base gets attacked by one of their other great foes, who's probably, I would consider, you're right around their Two-Face-ish, Scarecrow-ish foes, known as the Missile Men. And the Missile Men are basically robots as well, but they have thrusters on their back and cone heads, almost like the Transformer jet cone heads, and they just dive bomb and blow themselves up and come back together.
They're mass quantities.
Yeah, they're Missile Men. There's not much to explain more than that. And then the Missile Men fight the Metal Men, and one of them ends up, if I remember right, it's been years since I've read it, but one of them's kind of intelligent and finds Gold's responsometer inside of his body and crushes it.
Oh, what a
and
jerk
kills
move.
Gold.
I was going to say, would that kill them?
That kills Gold in issue 3.
Oh, wow. Man. Okay.
Which, for someone like myself, after reading issue 1 over and over and over again, Gold became my favorite very quickly. Because I also love the leaders of teams. Cyclops is my favorite X-Men. Leonardo's my favorite Ninja Turtle. Captain America's my favorite Avenger. Vanilla's my favorite ice cream flavor.
And rapper. It's fine. My favorite rapper as well. But as a kid though, that would crush you, man. To be like, this is my idol, this is my hero, this is dead.
This is my favorite Metal Man who I just found, and now he's dead.
Right.
It blew my mind. And so Magnus, to try to stop these guys, puts himself inside of a new Metalman body that he's been making, and uploads his psyche to a responsometer. And he creates a new Metalman off of this new, I don't even know if it's a real metal. I think it's kind of like a DC adamantium called Viridium. And he's kind of this green color. And, it's a cool looking Metal Man. He doesn't look like the other Metal Men. And it looks very, 90s costume where you've got rivets and big shoulder pads and all that. But it's cool. But I was still disappointed because it wasn't Gold.
Right.
And Viridium actually becomes canon Metal Man for quite some time. You see him, they again guest star in a few books after their 4-issue miniseries. And you'll see Viridium with the Metal Men popping up in a lot of the, if I remember right, the McGinnis run of Supermans. That whole era where I can't remember the other artists that run. I just remember McGinnis because McGinnis is one of my favorite artists.
I was like during the I think the Our Worlds at War.
Yeah.
Emperor Joker storylines and all that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
During that time frame, the Metalmen guest star in there, and Viridium is with them and not Gold. And at one point, they guest star in Legion. I do remember that for a fact because I bought those Legion books for the Metalmen, and Viridium is in them. And Viridium is there for quite some time until I read Identity Crisis one day. And in Identity Crisis, right after Jean Loring has her quote-unquote attack against her, and all the superheroes are in her house checking to see what's going on, Superman's checking microscopically and all that, the Metal Men are there in the background, and they're searching the fibers and getting in and checking stuff. But Gold is there.
Oh, so suddenly in Identity Crisis, Gold just appears and he's alive again?
Gold and Iron are there, and they're acting like nothing's happened.
But no Viridium. And there was nothing that explained that?
There is later.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, that's where and I was just like, what the heck? And ever since then, around that time on, it's only been Gold with the Metal Men again, which being a Gold fan, I was happy to see. But being a man who likes continuity, I wanted an explanation as to why Gold just suddenly appeared. Well, we don't even get an explanation until after Infinite Crisis, which Infinite Crisis, in my opinion, they do the Metal Men dirty.
Oh, were they not in it?
The Metal Men are in 2 panels in all of Infinite Crisis, including the one-shot crossovers.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Were they say background guys?
Yeah, they're in background guys. In fact, the biggest contribution the Metal Men have in Infinite Crisis doesn't even involve the Metal Men. It's when Chemo is dropped on Bloodhaven.
Oh.
Yeah, I remember reading that.
Yeah, I remember that too.
The villains who have united have Kimmo in a jet, or like a jumbo jet flying above Bloodhaven, and they drop him on Bloodhaven like a bomb.
Yeah, just like an atomic bomb.
Yep, and he destroys Bloodhaven. And that's the biggest contribution the Metal Men have on Infinite Crisis, and it doesn't even involve the Metal Men.
And that's sad, because they're a powerhouse team. Like, why would you set them on the sideline?
You have OMAC. You see a panel of them fighting OMACs, but you don't have anything with them involved in the OMAC storyline, and I think you kind of missed a huge opportunity there.
I agree.
Yeah, really, yeah.
Because those guys are powerhouses. Like I said, that's why my first interaction with the Metalmen wasn't until Countdown or 52, because they're not in any of that stuff, which is really what a missed opportunity.
Well, then that brings us to the Weekly Series 52.
Right.
Which they are shown in 52. And it's kind of Magnus getting the Metalmen brought back together. And if I remember right, some of them are chasing him down because they're kind of reprogrammed and he's got to unprogram him. But he's back to being Will Magnus. He's not Viridium in the entire story arc.
And we don't know why?
They explain why.
Oh, they do. In 52
yes,
they do.
They do. And it actually does one of those Jeff Johns style thing where they reference something in a random issue, back in the original ongoing.
Oh.
The original ongoing, Magnus had a mental breakdown, and the Metalmen kind of went on their own way, and Magnus went his way and got picked up by the government. And he builds this robot, the Plutonium Man, who does all sorts of destroying things and all that. And you find out that Magnus actually had a mental break then, and his brain started going crazy, and he imagined the entire 4-issue miniseries, the Jurgens miniseries.
Wow. So they made the Jurgens miniseries a dream.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. And he's on Happy Pills now.
How many years later are they like, by the way, this didn't happen?
Yeah.
Wow.
Man.
That's how they describe, and which means that really cool origin, in my opinion, really cool origin, where the Metalmen are actually people trapped inside these robotic bodies.
Nope.
Is not even real.
Man,
it goes back to the pre-crisis origin then.
Yep.
Where they just happen to have, where the metal was the personality. Mercury is Mercury. Wow.
Okay. Wow. What a cop out.
You know what though? Sadly, welcome to the world of comics. You know?
Yeah.
Like, you hate to hear it. You hate to hear it.
I was really disappointed when I read that too, because I mean, granted, I did not like Viridium over Gold, but still, give me better continuity than that. Say Magnus, had a backup of Gold somewhere on one of his drives, and he cloned his body and put his psyche in that body, and Gold brought Gold back.
Anything.
Right. Yeah. Right.
It's to me, that's like as bad as when else you found out Xavier had another team that included Vulcan.
Yeah.
He sends out there, and he's like, "Oh, I just erased everyone's mind that never happened." You're like,
"Yeah."
What?
But this is literally, "Oh, hey, I woke up. It was all a dream."
Yeah. Like Wizard of Oz. Okay, great. And you were there. You were there.
So then, is it at this time then that we get Copper?
Yes, that's actually where I was going next. Is Copper now shows up? She makes her first appearance in Superman and Batman, and we have another 7th Metal Man.
Huh.
And it is a female metal named Copper, and she's cool. I mean, they don't really give her.
I liked Copper. Yeah,
she was always. I liked parts of her because she was always pointing out how stupid the Metalmen were at times. Where they would be all like, "I'm going to do this," and she'd be like, "Guys, you need to be more careful, or that's not going to work like that." And then they fail, and she'd be like, "Yeah, you see, that didn't work like that."
See, I told you, dummies.
Right, but they have Copper show up, and she's there all the way up to Flashpoint. They're shown everywhere. As far as major crossovers go, though, they're not in Flashpoint. And
you're right at all.
Yeah, I don't remember them there at all.
What another miss, even in the futuristic stuff. Man.
And Final Crisis, they're in 2 panels in Final Crisis.
Yeah.
And it's not even the Metalmen we know. It's some Metalmen from another Earth where Magnus built Metalmen that look like Justice League.
That's because Grant Morrison, Final Crisis. I need to reread it, but Final Crisis I think missed quite a few beats. But
I don't.
Yeah, what a lost opportunity. Yeah, really. What a lost opportunity by not showing us a Flashpoint world version of the Metalmen. How cool would that have been?
Right. You could have had Cyborg leading that team.
Exactly what I'm saying. Yeah. They would have been. They easily could have been the team of Justice League. Cyborg and the Metalmen were the Justice League because everyone else was gone because nothing came together right, and he needed a team.
Man, that would have been cool.
That. Yeah. Right? And it's they're the only thing holding the world together. Oh, that right there.
Absolutely wasted.
What a missed opportunity there, because that would have totally made sense.
So now, they weren't really in Final Crisis, not really. Nope. They weren't in Flashpoint at all.
Nope.
So I don't know, because I didn't read much of this. I'm sure Smurfy doesn't know. What was their horrible retconned New 52?
Oh, yeah.
So I barely know.
Okay.
What I do know is there's an issue of Justice League. I can't remember what issue it is, where they're trying to bring on new team members. And they're interviewing new team members. And Doc Magnus, who is not the Doc Magnus I know, #not my Magnus, shows up. And he's like this guy in this army jacket, rolled up sleeves. He has goggles on his forehead because apparently only engineers wear goggles on their forehead. Okay. And he's very hipstery.
Oh, okay.
And he shows up with his new invention that he was going to audition for the Justice League, a platinum female robot.
Okay.
And she shows up, and I think if I remember right, she like fights the Justice League, and he's like, haha, see, it's a success, and then goes away. And then later, he builds the rest of the Metalmen, and they show up and have their first New 52 appearance in one of the Superman-Batman issues. But by that point, I was so despondent over the whole New 52 thing in general, even the Metalmen couldn't bring me back into it.
Man, the New 52 sucks.
Dude, I'm not lying. It made a lot of people jump. Like, it really did. And that's why everyone's like, Marvel sales are through the roof. Yeah, because there's nothing else to read. Like, DC sucks. You have Indie and Marvel.
Yet another missed opportunity where you could have gone, okay, we are restarting everything. Everything's getting a fresh start. Let's take a look at the Metalmen. We can approach these characters with a modern 21st century mentality and really make them a powerhouse. And what do?
They don't. Nothing.
And their designs, in my opinion, don't even make sense in the New 52. Because in the New 52, they look almost like Iron Man suits. Which are cool looking, but that doesn't make sense for the Metalmen.
No, that's the Metalmen are androids, man. They're the robots. You know?
Whatever. Even if you wanted to be robot, like you want to make them Red Tornado look like that, that's fine. But the Metalmen are shapeshifters. They morph their bodies all around. Why would they look like Iron Man suits of armor if they can constantly change their shape and morph?
Right.
It never made sense to me.
Because Iron Man was popular at the time, man. Let's capitalize on it.
Well, yeah. Mm-hmm. So, with all the New 52 stuff aside, that leads us into their next New 52 story arc, which I actually did just recently read, called The Legends of Tomorrow.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but this came out at kind of a time where it was like transitioning from New 52 to Rebirth, but we weren't really out of the New 52, and we weren't quite into Rebirth yet. It's like in that period, right?
Yeah. Right around that Convergence story arc and all that.
Convergence, okay.
But in this comic, which sounds like I'm going to go back and read the others. I wanted to read the Metalmen first. But there are 4 stories in each issue. One of them's Firestorm. One of them is Metamorpho. Oh, okay. Another one is 2 characters named Sugar and Spike.
Like the old silly book from the 40s that DC put out, Sugar and Spike, about the 2 babies?
These are not 2 babies. Flipping through it, they're shooting people.
Oh, I wonder if they just took the names Sugar and Spike and just
maybe.
Okay, all right.
It looked like they're 2 government agents or freelance agents working with Flash for the Justice League.
If I remember correctly, the old DC comics, Sugar and Spike, were like 2 like Looney Tunes or MGM style babies in
that no
adventures or something. Okay, all right.
No, that would have made the book even more interesting, and one I probably would have read, to see a bunch of babies running around with guns.
yeah, sign me up for that one. I'm in.
And then of course the Metalmen are in this book. And this is a fun little 6-issue miniseries where the Metalmen are fighting some sort of entity who's hacking government facilities, trying to get them to turn over the Metalmen. And the person's name who's hacking everything is called Nameless.
Oh, interesting.
Right. And I thought, okay, this is kind of cool.
Okay.
They end up hacking into one government weapon thing that the U.S. government was building, where they have built these robots that turn into missiles that rain down on cities, where they have the new 52 missile men. They turn into... he hacks all kinds of things. And then you find out Nameless is not Nameless from the 60s. It's not the female robot. Which I thought would have been a great way to bring Nameless back into things. Her be like, you left me out. No. Nameless turns out to be Calculator.
Oh.
Yeah. He turns out to be Calculator.
Dun, dun, oh.
Nameless turns out to be Calculator, working for someone named Mother Machine, who I've never heard of before.
Yeah.
And she wants a responsometer. That's the whole storyline. And that's why she wants the Metalman. Which I felt, again, is a huge missed opportunity. If you don't want Calculator, if you don't want Nameless to be, or if you want Nameless to be Calculator, have the real Nameless be the one that hired him.
That's what hurts my head, man. What hurts my head is they did the research to find this name. They did the research to find the background to the character. Then they're like, we're going to take all that, throw it in the garbage, and make it something completely different. Why do the research then? Pick a different 52. Name. Like, no. That's why, like I said, that's why it was so easy to drop, because it was so aggravating every time you were like, I'm done. I can't take it.
And in this one, the Metal Men end up running away from the government because the government wants to turn them over to Calculator to stop all the destruction, and Will Magnus won't turn them over. They end up turning to Robot Man, of all people.
From the Doom Patrol?
Yeah.
Okay.
And Robot Man gives them something that I did not expect them to ever have again since the old 60 series.
A heart.
And the Metalmen used to travel around in the old 60 series a flying saucer vehicle called the Sky Saucer that you could control with your mind, because 60s.
Right.
And apparently that's something that they've changed it to. Professor Calder built it. And Robot Man gives the Sky Saucer to the Metalmen. So I was like, okay, that's cool. We're at least giving them something back.
Okay.
And then the government hires Will's lab assistant to make new Metalmen. And she uses Doc Magnus's prototype responsometer and creates an all-new group of 6 Metalmen. Oh. And she creates Metalmen named Magnesium, Lithium, Zirconium, Silicone, Aluminum, and Copper.
So these are the new 52 versions of these characters, including the new 52 version of Copper.
Right. And they end up sending the new Metalmen to New York, where the classic Metalmen are there capturing Calculator. And, of course, they all fight each other, as superhero teams do.
Sure. When the fight has to be broken up because someone has woken up and escaped from his cage, Chemo returns.
I knew it. I was like, they're going to... Mm-hmm.
And the two teams have to team up to fight Chemo together, but this time Chemo is stronger and more powerful than before. He's quicker with his actions. He's thinking logically. He ends up wiping out all the Metalmen except for 10 in this fight. Yeah, he demolishes all of them but 10. And then you realize what's happening is someone put a responsometer inside Chemo. That's what...
Oh, shit.
Yeah. Okay. And Chemo came to life, and 10's the only one who sees it, and turns into a harpoon or arrow and shoots himself through Chemo, killing himself but knocking the responsometer out. Ultimately defeating Chemo in the end. And that's basically how the 6-issue mini goes, and then we go into Rebirth. And the most recent thing we've had on comic books on Rebirth is a 12-issue maxi series written by Dan Didio.
Now, I did read that. I jumped in on that because I knew enough about the Metalmen from you growing up,
right?
That I thought, okay, this is going to be our new Rebirth launch of the Metalmen, and they played a fairly big part in, or not a fairly big part, but they appeared briefly in
Crisis,
Dark Knights.
Oh yeah,
Dark Knights Metal, the first Metal. They appeared there, and out of Metal came the new Damage and the new Challengers, and I always thought the Challengers were cool. And so when they announced the Metalmen were coming, I thought, oh, I'm jumping in on this. And so I read that 12-issue run as well. I don't know about you, Dragonus, but I liked it.
I did. And I forgot to mention, too, at the end of the last run, they rebuild the Metalmen but 5 of the new Metalmen can't be rebuilt. Only one can be rebuilt that was using Doc Magnus's prototype responsometer, and it's copper.
And it's copper, of course. Sure.
But this new Maxi issue starts up, and copper's nowhere to be seen.
Yeah. Okay.
Copper's gone. No explanation whatsoever. But the Maxi series it's good. It's fun. It's like I said, it's written by Dan Didio. It's the last thing he did with DC before getting. In fact, he was given Das Boot in the middle of this miniseries.
Now, this introduced, I thought, a character that could have been really cool.
Yeah, definitely. In the nth Metalman.
Yeah, because metal, Dark Knight's metal, deals with nth metal. And, you know me and my love of Hawkman, and nth metal is very important to the Hawkman mythos.
Right.
So the fact that you introduce an nth metal man from the dark multiverse, I thought, wow, we could be really building up quite a scary villain here.
And then they don't.
And then they didn't.
You find out he's actually somewhat of a good guy from the Dark Universe, trying to get the Metalmen to stop the Dark Metalmen.
Yeah.
And that's the last we've seen of him.
I hate to say it, man, it sounds like DC, this typical DC being DC. Like,
right. They don't know what to do with the Metalmen.
Yeah, they've
tried throwing Metalmen in different things. Like, I don't know if you've read Kingdom Come, they show up in there.
Yep.
Their Alloy, the giant red, yellow, blue, gold robot guy that they fight. It's all the Metalmen combined into one guy. They show up in The Nail, the miniseries The Nail, where in there they are programmed to be more robotic, and they fight Wonder Woman because they believe Wonder Woman blows up the White House. They show up, I haven't figured out where yet, but you might know this one, Smurfy. They show up in the Batman Beyond universe.
Really?
In some
in the comics?
Yeah, in the comics.
I'm behind. If I find them, I'll keep you guys updated. Yeah, I'm behind on Batman Beyond. I'm still getting it. Like, I've got every issue, but I'll have to read it. Huh.
And then there's a Tangent version. I don't know if you remember Tangent, where they used the names of the original DC heroes but gave them different twists. And in this Tangent universe, the Metalmen are a group of special ops military team.
And I haven't read Deceased yet, but you would imagine the Metalmen would be perfect for that kind of,
Oh, yeah.
But good point.
And I don't think they show up in there. I really don't.
No, I don't think they did show up in there. Yeah.
Because, again, another wasted, like, Metalmen maybe they were like, they're too good because you have them come in, that'll save the day, and that's it. But I'm like, that would be a great way to prove your writing chops. Throw them in there and have them get
it'd be kind of like almost like how Vision was safe in What If Marvel Zombies.
Right. Type thing. Right. So, something along those lines.
There's another version of Metalmen that I personally love. I don't know if you guys remember Amalgam.
I love Amalgam.
Yeah.
When Marvel and DC had their mixed superheroes.
That's when you got like the Bat Vereen or whatever. It was Bat.
Yeah. Darklaw, that was it. Thank you. And there was a one-shot called Magneto and his Magnetic Men.
Oh, yeah.
And they were all magnetic metals that he worked with.
Of course.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's a cool concept, yeah.
And then, of course, the Metalmen, they do show up in some other medias. Like I've mentioned earlier, they are in one episode. They are featured heavily in one episode of Batman Brave and the Bold. And then there are a couple other side appearances in other episodes.
I don't remember. It's been a while since I've watched it. Did they show up in New Frontier? Because I know that they were in the comics, but I don't remember.
One scene at the very end when everyone is like doing the Avengers Age of Ultron scene, where everyone's jumping.
From what I remember from the comics, that might have been when they showed up there as well. I don't recall.
Right. But as far as other appearances go, the weird thing is, though, in Batman Brave and the Bold, Dr. Will Magnus is referred to as Dr. Milton Magnus.
I think they just forgot his name, and they were like,
they changed his name from Will to Milton.
That's weird.
Oh, I can't remember his name. Milton. What do you think we should do with this character? Name him after me.
Yeah, okay. Call him Milton.
Yeah.
Great.
I don't know why the person that's asking about Milton has a voice like this, but apparently the guy that works with Milton, who changed the name, talks like this.
No, I could see more like this. They're like, hey, what was that guy's name who made Metalman? I don't know, Milton. Milton it is. That's it.
But they do show up in a few other movies. Apparently, I haven't seen it yet, but they're apparently in Gods and Monsters. They're apparently in the DC Superheroes Girls. Something I've never watched Superhero Girls, but
that's the young kid. Yeah.
With Kari Payton as Iron, and I love Corey Payton. He's one of my favorite actors. At one time, Barry Sonnenfeld was in talks to work on a live-action movie of the Metal Men, but like every movie that DC makes, either it didn't get off the ground, or if it did, it probably would have been garbage.
Yeah, well, and that's probably what happened with the Metal Men CW show that was
that too.
The year, I think it was the year after Flash debuted.
Mm-hmm.
They were saying that they were going to come out with a Metal Men CW show, which I like the CW. I like the Arrowverse stuff. Obviously, they have to make changes. Can you imagine the horrendous changes they would have to make to do the Metal Men?
They couldn't do the CGI on the budget for it.
Well,
have them all
it would be
like wearing armor or something stupid.
You couldn't even do the CW formula of constant romances and have it make sense.
Right. Yeah. No, you're right. More of those metal people would have to be female for it to Yeah.
And that's about it on the Metal Men, guys. They have a very deep history, a very good, strong lore, but they're ultimately, in my opinion, completely wasted in the world.
Yeah, yeah.
Totally. What a wasted resource of awesome heroes that you could do so much with and could be the saviors that the world needs. Nope.
Yeah.
Leave them in a bunker, whatever.
If I do say so, I do think that if you want to read some Metal Men stuff, I know it's apparently a dream, but read the Jergens 4-issue miniseries. I loved it. I personally think it's fantastic. And again, I think it's the best origin the Metal Men have. And the Legends of Tomorrow was fun. I think that's a good one to read, especially if you like the New 52 era stuff. But you stick away from anything New 52.
that's across the board.
Right. That's just not Metal Men. That's across the board.
Well, and I will have to say, even though they missed some beats with the Nth Metal Man in the most recent Didio 12-issue run, yeah, they missed some beats, and there were some things that I wish would have gone a different way. But overall, I did not regret buying those issues, and it wasn't like I finished reading them and went, oh, I could have waited for the trade. I'm glad I bought them. I'm glad I read them, and I'll read them again. It was fun.
I bought all of them, and I bought all the variants, but that's just because
I forgot. Yeah,
I'm the Metal nut.
yeah.
But yeah, that's like I said, that's the Metal Men, guys. I hope you. Wow.
Wow, that is a lot to dive into, and that is a lot there. But it's nice. I think you gave us a really good, concise background. So now, for those of us who don't know as much, like Smurfy and myself, or any of our listeners out there, if anybody jumps in to any DC book and you're reading something and these 5 people made out of metal show up and you don't know what it is.
6.
Oh, 6. Sorry. Yes, right.
Sometimes 7. Count. No, sometimes 7. But you know what?
Sometimes 7.
We learned that I can't read. Smurfy and I can't read, and apparently I also can't count. But
you know what, though? With the way DC's going, when you see 4 people made out of metal, or 2,
who knows?
Who knows what they're going to do? Or 10.
Yeah.
No,
but either way,
they came from Metal Men.
This is a great primer, and now I know for me, even just somebody who knows DC, sitting down and reading a DC book with them showing up, I did recently find the first issue of that Dan Jurgens run, and I bought it. I just bought it because I remember you having it as a kid, and the nostalgic factor of owning it myself. But after hearing everything about their backstory and the characters and all that, I'm going to hunt down the other 3. I want the 4-issue miniseries. I want to read it.
Yeah, it's fun. It's a lot of fun, and it's a good issue, and it also gives you enough of the Metal Men to understand what's going on without having to give you all of what I gave you.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
But yeah, why don't listeners at home let us know what you think? Comment on all of our social medias using your robotic devices. Tell us if you are a Metal Men fan. Did I miss anything that you absolutely love that you want to make sure we know about? Post it on our social medias, or Facebook, Instagram, tweet it at us.
Or go to our Patreon page and become a patron and tell us to do an episode that focuses on that aspect of the Metal Men that we didn't cover here.
I will gladly make the sacrifice to read that and make super concisive notes specifically for you.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm really glad, though, you guys asked me to do this episode. I had a blast putting it together, and I hope you two enjoyed this time with me. But I think we're going to go ahead and wrap things up now. As always, I have been your gold lustrous Dragonus Prime.
I should have been Animanium Man, Smurfy.
And I will be the Vibranium Dr. Impact.
Until next time, take care, listeners.
And with that, the knowledge is yours. What does it even mean? Are you a lister? Do you want to be a lister? You can be a lister today. Join now. Join what? Where? What are you talking about?
What he means is you and everyone you know should subscribe, rate, and review our podcast on every app possible.
Head on over to our Patreon page and help support the show.
Good. Now take it home.
The power is yours. Not happy. Aww.
And the funny thing is,
fellow Green Lantern fan,
the funny thing is about this, Guy Gardner's not even my favorite Green
100%
Lantern.
back it up. Well, right. Well, that's what's even better about it. Yeah. No, agreed.
I don't think there's any metalmen out there. I've searched.
Oh,
no,
okay.
I'm joking.
That kink will not be on our Patreon. Pay extra for that. No.